On August 30th, Bengaluru, the silicon capital, the heavy rains had brought the city to its knees. You could also see especially techies wading through knee-deep water. But we also had one instance where we went on to see Dr. Govind Nandakumar, who is a gastroenterology surgeon at Manipal Hospital in Bengaluru. He had to leave his car behind with his driver and run nearly 3-kilometer stretch to reach the hospital to perform an emergency surgery. And joining here on NDTV is the doctor himself. Well, thank you for joining us here on NDTV. Firstly, we saw what really happened on 30th of August. But again, things really didn't, seem to get any better because we continue to see the intensity of the rain increase. But for you as a doctor, we have seen how even techies wade through. We have seen several employees wade through the water and go. But for you as a doctor, what do you really have to talk about the kind of traffic that the city witnesses? Because I clearly heard you talk about, we see traffic in New York, you see traffic in LA. But the city of Bengaluru that we talk about, it's a quaint little city that, of course, emerged and evolved into a bustling one. But don't you think it's really got to worse?
Certainly. I mean, I think the difference between Bangalore and any other city in the world is that the traffic can be very disorganized. The traffic is bad, but it can be disorganized. And then we sometimes deal with difficult infrastructure or limited infrastructure that we have. But, sometimes it hinders our commute. I mean, sometimes patients wait. Sometimes I have to tell them, look, I'm delayed by half an hour, 45 minutes, maybe longer. And sometimes you don't know when you're going to reach the other end of the city. Occasionally, I've had to, even reaching Yeshwantpur or Hebbal, get off the flyover or, and just walk across. I'm very comfortable walking and I'm happy to walk because it puts in those number of steps in a day. But even doing that is sometimes challenging because you don't have a walkway in many parts of the city. Even if you want to walk, you cannot walk safely or cross the road safely. Right. So I think, we need a little bit of help in terms of infrastructure.
True, because, in every other way, if you're looking at, because if you're talking about the traffic, you have every day that, more number of vehicles are getting registered. Of course, there's no future planning because you do not see how else can, especially the government, build and develop and make a robust, transport system. On the other hand, you have such a kind of a bad traffic situation. You do not have, especially when it rains or pours, you don't have ways where the water can, inlet and outlet. On the other hand, you have flooding happening, and then you don't have good footpaths. And how did you actually manage that day to run 3-kilometer stretch? Because what was it like at that point in time? Because you are not rushing, maybe if it was not like any other situation, if it was not an emergency surgery. I understand that you might have just said, just like how you said, it could have been a normal walk for another day. But this was not like that. This was an emergency kind of a situation.
Yeah, I mean, thankfully, the right side, we were traveling towards Sarjapur. So the left side of the road was completely logger jammed. And there are many signals along the way. It's a ring road, so you can't really walk, and it's not safe to walk on that segment of the road. Thankfully, I got out of the car and looked at the other end of the road. The right side of the road had, what you may call a footpath. And thankfully, there was no traffic on that end of the road. That helped me a lot. So I had a free roadway to run across. Of course, I had to make sure that there were no gaps in the road and no oncoming traffic. But I run in Common Park. I run, so it was germane to me. It wasn't really that difficult
I would like to come to that again. Usually, do you walk to work? And if so, how many hours does it take you, or how many minutes does it take you to reach the hospital?
I haven't walked to the hospital in Bangalore because there is no way for me to walk from my home. There is no walkway to walk from my home to Sarjapur or Yeshwantpur or Hebbal or any other hospitals.
What's the distance that you cover from your house to
Sarjapur is about 24 to 27 kilometers.
Yeah. And that takes about how many hours?
I think, I don't want to be quoted wrong. I think it's 24 kilometers. But, other places, like I've walked 5-6 kilometers from my house. I've walked from Cunningham Road to Indiranagar. I've walked So I think walking is good. The challenge
Right.
is crossing the road.
True. Especially since you're working there at in the hospital, which is on the IT corridor. That's infamous for especially traffic there. It's known for traffic. Can you tell us that on regular days that you travel, when you commute to hospital, what is the travel time taken, and what was the time taken that on that particular day?
So usually it takes anywhere from, if it's a very good day, say 20 to 30 minutes to 45 minutes is the average commute. Really depends on the time of the day. And on that day, well, if it had already taken me over an hour to reach there, and if the car took another 2.5 hours to reach the hospital. It took me about 15 to 20 minutes.
So the 3-kilometer stretch that you ran, so how far was the car that was you just left that from the location, and how long did it take for your driver to reach the location?
2.5 hours.
2.5 hours. Like, what was the length of the stretch that you're talking about? 3
The same
kilometers?
3, because it's one straight road,
Okay.
Yeah.
2.5 hours. Okay. What do you really have to talk? I want to understand, because of this delay, was the operation delayed?
Well, I mean, yeah, we delayed the operation because by the amount of time it took for me to reach there. So I think it's about at least half hour to 45 minutes, which should
By
have been
45 minutes, the operation was delayed.
Yeah, and it's not safe to start an operation without the surgeon in the hospital. So we always wait. So we always follow our protocols. And certainly the hospital system helped out a lot, from the anesthesia team to the nursing team. So I called them and said, look, I'm stuck, just wait. And then when I'm walking into the hospital, we can get started.
Have you, any time in your career, have you, run behind your schedule or reached late for an operation?
See, as doctors, we are dealing with people.
Yes.
Although you may try, you can never be on time every time, right? It is just humanly impossible, because a certain operation which is supposed to take half an hour may take 3 hours. So I can't say that we're on time every time. It's impossible. But we try to keep our time. And sometimes, especially if there's a patient that's in pain or uncomfortable, we try to, and many of us have started working in teams. So we have a team of people that can help out. So we strive, and I think sometimes it is challenging to keep time.
Okay, so it's happened before as well.
It's happened to me for other legitimate reasons. You're like, it's not because okay, a patient may have waited in the clinic area for say 20 minutes because there was traffic and you couldn't get that. That's okay. That happens.
But for emergency like operations and is there any day that you can recall that you have been delayed because of the traffic?
Not particularly to that extent, because we always have our in-house doctors, in-house teams that can take care of the basic. So we're I think at least the places I work at, Manipal Hospitals, we have the infrastructure to set up so that you're not threadbare. You can't say, well, the doctor couldn't come, so we couldn't. We don't do that. You don't want to do that.
Also, what do you have to talk about the kind of the kind of mental pressure that you go through, especially when you're running late, especially for an emergency operation like this? Because I believe you were stuck in that traffic. How soon did you take that decision? Okay, let me run.
I would say, I looked at Google. I said, let me wait. Yeah, let me wait. So I checked, and then it said 45 minutes. 10 minutes later, it said 45 minutes. So I said, look, my driver speaks Tamil. So I spoke to him and I said, shall I just run? And he looked at me and laughed. And then I said, look, either I got to call and say, postpone the case to the afternoon, or let's not do it. Or I can do something about it, and so just sitting in the car.
Right.
Yeah.
What do you want to eventually, ask the government to at least provide the basic infrastructure? Because we do not want to see in the future doctors running right to hospitals to perform surgeries.
Well, I think it's a multi-pronged effort, right? You'll have to have the government, you'll have to have the authorities, the implementation of the plan has to be good. The people have to abide by the plan, everybody from citizens to authorities. So I think we should come together as a city. There are some fantastic world-renowned architects that live in the city, and urban planners that live in the city. There are world-renowned corporations that have the wherewithal and capacity to lend support. But it just needs to come together, because I feel a lot of the effort that's put in, maybe lasts a year or two. This is what I've seen in Bangalore, a year or two, and then we lose that effort, and then we're redoing it from scratch again. If you look at white topping or CBD area, and I'm not one to point fingers, or I'm not one to shame our cities. Bangalore is a beautiful city. It's a vibrant city. In my opinion, it's one of the best cities in the world. But we need to get it the right infrastructure, so that it's a livable city for all.
Well, thank you, Dr. Govind. In fact, somebody who moved from New York City to Bengaluru and who still calls it a very, very beautiful city and does not want to shame the city, but only asks government, requests the government, if at all, the stakeholders can come together and provide the basic of basic good infrastructure for its citizens. Well, if that's not possible, we are going to definitely see more doctors just like him running to hospitals to perform operations. In Bengaluru, with Kumar Srija for NDTV.